Good afternoon, LinkedIn. It says that we are live, so I hope that you can hear us and see us. Welcome to our show, Recruitment Hacks Live. This is our 9th show. I just can't believe how quickly the time has gone by. If you can see us and hear us, please put a comment in the chat box. We want this show to be as interactive as possible. So let us know you're here. Let us know your thoughts on anything that we talk about today. And ask any questions. And if we have time at the end, I'm sure Ryan, who is my guest today, will be more than happy to accommodate. And if we can't answer the questions in the show, we'll answer them afterwards. So our topic this week is mindset mastery post-COVID. And I thought, as we are coming out of what's been a really sort of challenging 12 months, that would be fantastic to get Ryan on the show. Ryan and I, in fact, have met through LinkedIn. So we've already got Annette and someone else here saying hello to us. So thank you, everybody who's watching us today. Yes, as I said, Ryan McTaggart, we met actually through LinkedIn. You started popping up in my comments and we got talking, and you've been doing some work with us at Rewella James. And I just thought it would be great, as I said before, as we're coming out of this very, very challenging time, for us to talk about mindset mastery post-COVID. So I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you. You have this tagline of the Mindset Medic, which we were discussing just before we came live. But you are actually a mindset and health coach who help your clients navigate stress, trauma, and crippling self-doubt. And you have a mantra that it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. And I think that's been talked about a lot over the last 12 months. And one of the other reasons I really wanted to get you here is you have been in our position. You've been a recruiter, which is mainly my audience, for nearly 3 years, including working for S3, that we all know is a pretty challenging environment. So I know that you're coming at this from a place of having been in that situation yourself. You all know how in recruitment it's all about being resilient and being positive. And almost from day one, there are these expectations put upon us, whether we're very experienced or whether we're just coming into recruitment for the first time. So I thought it would be good, because even when we are busy, it's very, very easy to feel sort of overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So let's get sort of straight into it. Obviously, as a business owner, for example, just putting myself in this situation, the last 18 months have been incredibly challenging. We've had recruiters who've been on furlough, maybe they've been made redundant. I think every single one of us in some way, our mental health has suffered, perhaps more than it ever has before, even if we've come out of this sort of semi-okay. Why right now is this a subject that we should really take seriously? Why should we be looking at ourselves, do you think, and trying to reset what's gone before? And perhaps use it more positively moving forward? Why is now a good time, do you think?
Realistically, when we consider that the whole world has experienced this pandemic, it's something that hasn't happened in generations. Our parents' generation did not experience it. And now we are in a place where globally, not one of us have escaped the impact of COVID. So we have all had to endure, in one way or another, massive change in our life. And what that does as humans, we crave a couple of things, but one of them is certainty. And when that certainty is pulled away from you, you feel like you've lost control in your life. And something that we're all seeking is that ability to have elements of control. We've all lived long enough to know that we don't control everything, but we like to think we have elements of control on our lives. Now, when that's the case, that it gets pulled from you through absolutely no doing of your own, and it's something that happens worldwide, immediately what happens is that we all have some sort of mental unsettlement. Like, we just have this period where there's uncertainty, and we have to kind of navigate that from a place where we've never been before. And as I've said, for generations now, we haven't been. So there probably has never been a better time to discuss mindset. There probably has never been a more relevant time, as discussed throughout this call, than right now, because everyone has had to see their life change in front of them. Everyone's had to cope with those changes. and then now we're coming out the other end of 3 lockdowns over the last 12 months. It's probably the best time ever to start looking at how you can protect, redefine what's happened, and redesign what's going to happen moving forwards.
And how do we raise awareness of our own mindset? Because we all lead very busy lives. I know what I'm like. Sometimes things sort of kind of hit me like a ton of bricks when I least expect it. So how do I prevent that from happening and raise my own, how do we, not just me, obviously, but how do we raise our own self-awareness about our current state of mind?
Great question. So when it comes to the human experience, so we're all human beings. We have to give ourselves 2 things, and that is we have to allow ourselves to build and develop our awareness, but we also have to have a healthy serving of compassion. So for anyone to take anything from this moving forwards, you have to be willing to increase the level of awareness of your current condition, and then to be compassionate that it is okay to feel the way that you feel today. So that's where I wanted to start with this. But then if you want to think about raising your awareness, I'm going to talk about Where's Wally. It just came to my head. So if anyone has done one of those puzzles with Where's Wally, what you'll find is that it is a page awash with people and different characters, because you have to find Wally. So our life is awash with experience, and we do a lot of doing, not a lot of being. So that is the case because that's the way life has become. We have a number of responsibilities, we have commitments, we have demands on our time. That is all of the stuff that pollutes those pages when you are doing a Where's Wally puzzle. And if you were to think of the level of awareness day to day, the reason why awareness is not truly defined or refined is that you go through life at a very surface level. So to put that into context for you, the numbers might not be accurate, but we have somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts in a day. So if that was the case, that we were consciously aware of those thoughts, things become a little bit crazy, and your mind would be absolutely bogged down. So what we do is we stay up here. So we stay very surface level, very superficial with all that's going on around about us, because that means that our subconscious mind can protect us from all of the other stuff that sits under the surface. So our opportunity in our job is to have that time where we can look at what is actually going on in our life and sit with it for a moment to find out what's coming up. And something that people really struggle with is to sit down with their thoughts and feelings, because a lot of what we're doing is that we are keeping that barrier up between our subconscious mind, which protects us from all of those thoughts, feelings and experiences, and our conscious experience of life. So we have to spend time with those thoughts and feelings, and how we do that, Rue, is that we want to sit with them and perhaps write down what comes up. So if you give yourself 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, a lot of thoughts will come to your forefront of your mind because you're not engaging in anything else. It has an opportunity to come up to the surface. So then what you want to do is you want to write them down, and once you have them on paper, you've created awareness. So you have brought to the surface something that has been in the background for a while. So another way you can do that is, to that 5 minutes, you could perhaps sit down and take part in some sort of meditation practice. And meditation is becoming more and more common, and it should be. I couldn't condone it anymore. We have to become aware of what our life experience is and how we feel and think, so that we can process these things versus suppress them, if that makes sense.
So once you've written them all down, and it could be quite overwhelming, because for the first time you may be being truly honest. We sort of bat away these things, don't we? I'm like, I'll think about that tomorrow, think about that later, maybe that never happens. You write all of this down. How do you then start to process what you might be feeling and kind of take it forward so it doesn't become detrimental to your life? You then start using, I try anyway to use my negatives positively, but it's not always easy to do. So how do you take it that step further?
Yeah, so when it comes to that process of sitting down with your thoughts and your feelings, this is where compassion comes in. So we have to understand that the human experience is such that we have a range of emotions. So there's a range of chemistry that comes up in your body, and which makes you feel a certain way. So none of that is wrong. If you feel a certain way today, it is not wrong. It just is. If you feel feelings that are not comfortable for you, this is a process that you should do with someone else who you trust, where you have an element of psychological safety, because that has to be the premise or the basis for you opening up to someone, where you have no judgment, where there is a space. So what I would say is that if you write down your thoughts and feelings and you become more aware, then if that brings up something that you're not comfortable with, then reach out a hand for help. There are many, many people now who actually specialize in this space, myself included, people who help you with mental health challenges and past traumas and experiences that you are not comfortable with. So if you write something down and it starts to bring up emotions that you are not ready to process on your own, then I have to invite you to be, one, compassionate and say, I understand these feelings are real, and I am only human. I'm meant to experience them. But I also understand that I need to ask someone to take me on this journey, because it's not something I'm super comfortable with. And that has to be the place that you start.
We've had a lot of comments with people saying they're massive advocates of meditation and yoga, you know, and I mean, what I think has been really heartening over the course of COVID is to see on LinkedIn so many posts now where people are kind of reaching out to others, but also being very honest about their own struggles. And we all know that having a positive mindset is actually really quite a crucial ingredient to be successful in recruitment. Why do you think that's changed? Because I know within my own family background, there have been some sort of mindset and mental health issues, things that you then don't talk about, you don't share with others. And now, in the last 12 months, people are talking about it a lot more. Why do you think that has changed? What do you think about COVID has made people feel comfortable talking about it now?
So I have like so much love. If you do meditation or you have practice of yoga, so much respect for that. Credit to you. When it comes to the now rise in people talking about mental health and challenges, what COVID has given us, and again we might touch on this later, but what COVID and the pandemic have given us is more time in our own bodies and our own heads, more space than we've ever had from other people engaging. And that Where's Wally picture that we've referenced already has become far less polluted. There's more social distancing. Like, it just has become less chaotic in your life. There's less appointments you have to meet. There's like, you're now spending much more time up here than you have out here in your whole life. So what that's given rise to is that people have had to, one, sit with it more, like we've discussed, and how you become more aware, but two, they've had the opportunity to spend time on social sites where people have been vulnerable enough, and when other people share, it makes us as humans feel safe, if we're ready to share also. And I've found much inspiration on social media from people sharing their own stories to bring my own story to life for other people to understand. And that creates this chain reaction of people just opening up a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be everything, but just getting a little bit off of this can absolutely like lift and raise your life experience massively. So I'm a massive advocate for sharing your story if you feel comfortable to. And if not, at least share with someone, get that load, that burden off of your life.
Do you think that we should be, if a candidate that we're working with is going through this, I'm just going a bit off track for a second because it's just something that's come up with me recently. Do you think we should feel safe to be able to share that with a potential employer? Or do you think that's something we should still perhaps hold back a little bit on? Do you think people should start sharing this when they're going out on a job search, or if they are at work and they're struggling? Do you feel that they should now be in a situation where they can share that more with their actual employer within their business?
I think that they absolutely should. When it comes to shoulds, I'm not the biggest fan. However, I think people 100% should be able to have those conversations. But again, we're still very early on in the process, Ru. And what I mean by that is that for centuries and generations upon generations, physical health has been something that has been discussed endlessly. Mental health is now something that is becoming, and it should always have been equally as, if not more important than physical health, in my opinion. But that has given rise to a sea shift of like awareness and acceptance of mental health. It doesn't mean that every organisation is prepared to hear that news, and perhaps there will still be some resistance to bringing on someone who perhaps has these challenges within organisations. Now, I don't know of organisations because, again, I'm not active in recruitment. I certainly would have had conversations in the past where I would have a feel for that organisation and known that it wasn't a conversation that I could have. If that person has been vulnerable enough and trusted you enough to have that conversation with you, then perhaps it's something that you would ask the question, listen, are you comfortable if I have this conversation? Here's what I know of the organisation. Here's how I think they operate. This is the hiring manager and I have a good relationship with them. I think he would be open to that. Are you comfortable for me to share? I think that is a conversation that you would have first and foremost. But I do believe there are still organisations that it wouldn't be well received.
Okay. I mean, obviously, you have conversations with lots of people. You're treating a lot of people who perhaps want to, work on their mindset, or they just want to go through some stuff that maybe has affected them from the past so that they can move forward in a more positive way. What are the typical signs as recruiters, recruitment leaders, that we should be looking for with somebody who perhaps is struggling with their mindset? Because this is such a pressurized job, as we said before. I'm sure when you came into recruitment, and as I quoted this earlier, it's all about resilient, being positive, getting yourself out there. It's not always easy for people, and sometimes things happen in their lives that stop them from moving forward. What are the signs that we should be looking out for that someone is struggling?
So from personal experience, whenever I was, because back then I hadn't done a lot of work on my mindset, and it was still something that kind of challenged me every day. And at that point, there was always a synergy between how my mental health was and how my performance was in the role. So if there was something affecting me external to the role, then that would have an impact on how I performed day to day. So I think that performance, and that could be in any area of your life, but particularly recruitment or a role which is very challenging mentally for you to stay resilient and focused and deliver results. When there is some sort of fall off, which is like not normal, then there perhaps is that ability for you as the recruitment leader to have a conversation and open the door to that nature of conversation. Again, no one can force someone to change. No one can force someone to have that conversation, but we have to create as leaders, which again, I lead people through the journey on their own life. But as leaders in recruitment, you have to create a safe space, psychologically safe, where someone doesn't feel they're going to be judged for being a little bit off, for feeling a little bit under the weather mentally. And that is, I think that is absolutely a leader's role, is to make it psychologically safe for the people within their team or within their organisation to come and have conversations which are perhaps not easy to have.
I think that's so relevant, because I think, just thinking about this myself, when people aren't performing well, you instantly start looking at their activity and their KPIs, and not. I think that's quite a common theme, and not necessarily thinking what else could be going on in their lives, or perhaps where is their mindset at? How positive are they about all sorts of different things? And I think that's a really, really good point. In fact, Ben Browning has just said a couple of things here. He's put, might the increase in people speaking up about their mental health also stem from the fact that the pandemic has affected everyone, that we are aware of a shared experience and feel okay sharing our experience of a common struggle. And I think, Ben, that's a really, really good point. And he's just asked you a quick question here. He said, Ryan, do you help recruiters with affirmations, visualizations, or journaling practices at all? or can you recommend anything that perhaps we could do? I love the affirmations and visualizations. So I think journaling's talked about quite a lot, but what would you say on the affirmation and visualization piece?
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Ben. When it comes to affirmations and visualizations, we have to remember that our brain has absolutely no idea what is imagined and what is real. Now, by that, what I mean is that people who say affirmations work or affirmations don't work and have an opinion on that only have to look at the life and what their predominant thought process has been to see that affirmations are all that ever work. So what I would say is that when you have an affirmation that you repeat, if you repeat it consistently enough, what you're actually doing neurologically is that you're hardwiring patterns into your head which make it far easier to have that thought, which means that even when you're not consciously aware, then that thought will play in the background. And that means that whatever you have implanted in your mind then presents and turns up in your external world and your external life experience. As far as visualization, again, we could perhaps talk about it, but visualization, what we have to do is to make our visualizations as real and give it as much flavor, sight, taste, smell, all that sort of stuff. That we have to give our visualizations as much content and design as accurate a picture as we possibly can, so that our brain has no references to whether that's created or whether it's not. And again, these processes that we can actually change how our brain is structured, what links in the brain, syncs in the brain. We want to create these repetitive visualizations that we can go over time after time. And the more that we do it, the more we create the architecture, the structure in our mind, which allows us to bring that to the external world. So both affirmations, which we've done all our life without actually thinking about it, and visualizations are two of the most powerful tools that you have at your disposal day by day to change how your future is going to look.
I mean, it's just so powerful, and I know it seems so simple. These things often are, aren't they? You know, we think it's all going to be incredibly complicated, but actually the route to, you know, not just surviving but thriving is sometimes quite simple steps. But as I say all the time, it's about taking that action and helping yourself kind of move forward. Off camera, you and I have spoken about, and I made some notes about it here, about becoming the architect of our mind. Can you explain this concept to anyone who's listening? And we are getting some lovely comments today, so thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you for the comments. As far as being the architect of your mind, now, what I mean by that is that you can live by default or by design. So when it comes to life, we are all born in the same way, and we come through a relatively similar journey. Now, how that pans out in your day-to-day life experience can be very unique and is very unique. We all have a story. What happens, though, is that we come through a very similar education process, which, again, I think is broken, and I'd love to talk about that in the future. But I think that what happens is that we get to a stage where we leave school and we either go to university or we pick a job. At that time, we don't even know who we are as adults because we're not adults. So we're still making decisions based largely on what our society, what our close family and our close peers have made decisions to do. So at that stage, I would assert that we are all living by default. Now, what happens is, and why this is such a perfect time for you to change the rest of your whole entire life experience, is that this is the first time in generations that we've had a deliberate break in that default programming. And as adults, we've had extended periods. Some of us have just worked all the way through and had to do whatever we had to. But there are certainly elements of the population that have had extended periods of downtime where it's given them the opportunity to review that default program that they're living by and think about what they would design if they had the opportunity in their hand today. So what I mean by the architect of your mind is that, again, coming back to those visualizations, affirmations, and learning new information, when we do this, if you spend an hour learning bits of information in a new field, a new topic, a new subject matter, you double connections in your brain in a certain space. So I'm not going to get into the science of it, but we can start to design our minds. We can literally implant new thought processes which will lead to new feelings. And all that sort of stuff can really craft the future that you desire. And I have to come back to it because your brain understands so many different inputs. So what we want to do is, as the architect of our mind, as the person who is in control of what the future can look like for us, we have to make it as detailed as we possibly can. And architects work with the end in mind. And that's exactly what we get to do as well. So if you're an architect sitting there, they are sitting with the blueprints to the finished product. No ground is broken until they know what the finished product looks like, because if they don't, they can't even put in a foundation because they don't know what's going above it. So we're exactly the same, that we should start with the end in mind, know exactly where we're going, and then break that down before we break ground and we start taking action. And if you can do that, you can design whatever future that you want in your life.
Again, that's really interesting, because when I was doing some mindset work at the beginning of the pandemic, the first thing I had to do was write a letter to my future self. And I think this has come up quite a lot. I've seen quite a few posts on LinkedIn about this, about visualizing, as you say, where you want to be, and then kind of working out how you're going to get there. And that was certainly quite thought-provoking for me, because I see the world naturally through rose-tinted glasses. Even when things are going wrong for me, as you said before, I just push it to one side. I'm so busy, I don't think about it another time. And I've never really dealt with some things in my life which I'm trying to deal with now. So I think that visualization and perhaps looking, as you said, that analogy that you gave about looking at that end result, who you want to be, what is the best version of yourself going to look like, that's really good advice. And I had never thought about it before, but it's something I'm always thinking about now. And certainly I found it quite motivating, if nothing else. Francesca's asked a question. She has said here, how long does it take for the brain to remember affirmations?
So the way the brain works, and what I've said is that when you learn something new or you say something new and you create a new pattern in your brain, when you do that, you are literally creating new networks, so new pathways. Now, when that happens, if that is not repeated within 3 hours, 3 days, like it's called neural pruning. So that path that you created will just disappear. Your brain is like the most accurate conservation tool ever, for energy. And what it's looking to do is just to make sure that it is set for function, fit for purpose. So what I would say is that when you start saying affirmations, or you start repeating affirmations, as long as you consistently repeat them, your brain will never forget them. And at the same time, as long as you have ever said it once, your brain will have some sort of reference that it did happen. It just won't be hardwired, and it won't be the easiest path for your brain to go down. So what I would say is that you want to consistently say it for long enough that it becomes default. And that's what, you'll always live by default unless you design what that default should look like.
Lovely. And then Leandra has said here, conditioning is living by default. Purpose is living for yourself. The last question I really want to ask you is what can we do? What tips can you give us to ensure that we are living a life of purpose post-pandemic? And particularly with this mindset, mental health piece, which is going to carry on for years and years and years, as we know. These things don't just disappear. What are the sort of 3 best pieces of advice you could give us to make sure, if you like, that we have a mindset that is fit for purpose moving forward?
So mindset fit for purpose, leaving this pandemic, this lockdown, and we have to bear in mind that the virus is still in existence, and it probably is going to be for an extended period of time until we get things under hand. So at the moment, the best advice that you can possibly have, and the number one thing that I would advise anyone to do, is to redefine what has happened in the last 12 months. So before you start to live the future, you redefine what the past looked like for you. So everyone has had an opportunity to press reset in the last 12 months. And what that will have given you is the opportunity to look at what is the actual priority in your life. Maybe you've exercised more, maybe you've seen your kids more, maybe you've X, Y, Z, it doesn't really matter. But what was important to you in the last 12 months is what is really important to you moving forward. So it is so easy for us moving out of the lockdowns and perhaps going back to offices for recruitment and wherever we need to be, to just lose sight of what was actually important through the last 12 months. And what I want you to do is just to understand where those priorities lie and make sure you find a space, because what you plan for will be what happens. If you plan for nothing, then it will just go back to what it was. So have your priorities and plan for those. Secondly, what I would say, that if you want to have a mindset that's fit for purpose, you have so much reference to experiences in the last 12 months that you would never have contemplated 14, 15 months back. Like, you just couldn't have contemplated them. So what we have now is reference points for kind of coping with adversity, reference points for our strength and ability to handle those adversities. And that will give you the capacity to understand that whatever challenges lie ahead of you are perhaps not as challenging as what has gone before. And that should be the strength and the place that you live from day by day. Because the pandemic changed everyone's lives. Now you know that something that totally turns the world upside down, you have survived, and now you will have the opportunity to thrive. And taking that forward, that you're strong enough, you are great enough, you are worthy enough, you have enough within you to handle any challenge that comes before. And one of my favourite things is that if you look at your success rate for enduring tough days, it is 100%. If you are here today, it is 100%. And that has to be your strength. Now, whatever comes up, comes up. Meditation is often mistaken for a quiet mind. That is not the case. Thoughts are like clouds, we should allow them to pass by. So often we grip onto them and we go with them. So what I would say is that meditation is a practice where you sit with your thoughts and you allow them to pass by. If you see that you're being triggered by something, or you feel the need to hold on to something, that is worth noting, because bringing awareness to that fact will change how you perceive it in the future. So I'll summarise for you. What we have to do is we have to look at the last 12 months and understand that we have found our true priorities. We've perhaps found our true purpose. And if that's the case, then we keep a hold of that, because that is worth holding on to. Secondly, what you have to do is that you have to understand that the adversity you've come through is perhaps more challenging than anything that's coming up in the very short future. And if that is the case and your success rate is 100%, take that strength forward with you every moment of every day. And lastly, give yourself time, give yourself awareness and compassion to sit with your thoughts on a daily basis for 5 minutes. And whatever triggers you, understand that that's an area of inner work that you can start doing, which will change your whole future. I hope that helps.
Fantastic advice, and actually really inspiring, Ryan. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you as a guest. We've had some other really wonderful comments, but I think that prioritizing, Claire has said here, surviving tough days 100%, love that. Marie has just said, here, let those thoughts pass by. And I think that's just a perfect ending to the show. So thank you for your time. I encourage everybody to connect with Ryan McTaggart, because you write some fantastic stuff on LinkedIn. You have some great content. You do some videos on a regular basis. I know you're about to star on a podcast. What is the name of that podcast that you're about to star in?
You Are Your Brand.
You Are Your Brand. I thought that was a fantastic name, by the way. So that's coming out soon. And I think your story is incredible. I obviously know quite a bit of it, but if anyone wants to hear an inspiring story that saw Ryan get to where he is now, look at that podcast when it comes out. I'm sure you'll pop it on your LinkedIn page anyway. But thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody who's participated today. We've loved the questions and we've loved the interaction. And if you want to watch this again, or if you're watching the replay, this is also going to be on my YouTube channel. I'm sure it'll be on Ryan's YouTube channel. Thank you for your time. It's been wonderful. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.